Hi everybody, Ian here. Just wanted to start the show by saying thank you so much for listening to the GameBrew podcast. It makes a huge difference to us that we have such a great audience out there, so thanks, keep it up. If you wanted to support the show in other ways, you can always do that by sharing us on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter, or by leaving us a great review on iTunes or wherever it is that you listen to the show. If you're looking for some games and you want to get them at a good rate and support some really great charities, you can also go to bit.ly/GameBrew at the Humble Bundle store and use that link to support us. That can be hugely helpful too. And then also let us know when you have a topic you want to hear. That's also a great thing you can do. That's it from me. Here's the show.
Damn ambiguous birds. All over the goddamn place.
I bet he gets into some seedy shit in his spare time, you know what I'm
Fucking. God damn it. Oh, the puns.
Yep, they're about to take flight.
Jesus Christ.
Nice.
Did that one not land, Dan? You didn't appreciate that?
It feels like you're winging it a little bit, so.
You have egg on his. It has egg on his face now.
Yeah, it does.
Bird puns. Okay, I'm sorry. Hello and welcome to episode 55 of the GameBrew podcast. I am your host, Ian Athos Richard, and I'm here with Chris Porthos Wrights.
All for one.
And Dan Aramis Rots.
And one for all.
On the first half of today's show, we're talking about platform exclusivity, and then in the second half, we're going to touch base about games with a message. But first, it's time for a beer. Oh, Chris, what are we drinking this week?
Negra Modelo.
Modelo Negra.
Modelo Negra?
Well,
yeah.
Sure, whatever. Those two things, those two words, whatever way you want to put them, we're drinking that. So it's on the Wikipedia.
Yeah,
it says Negra Modelo.
That Wikipedia's our source now, huh? That's a source.
Yep. It's good enough for me.
That is about as far as our research goes.
So it's not too alcoholic, 5.4%. It's a Dunkel-style lager, first brewed in Mexico by Austrian immigrants.
Ooh.
People don't think about this when they think about Mexico, that like there's a very strong tradition of Austrian and like Germanic peoples in Mexico. And that's why like polkas are so big still there.
Well,
and
it's called mariachi.
Well, mariachi is a little bit different, but yeah, but like there are a lot of things that got exported from Austria and became sort of the part of Mexican culture, which is kind of fun.
I thought those things that got exported from Austria were mainly in Argentina.
That was different. This was before then. That was later. Ian, this is a legit question.
That was colonization 2.0. This is colonization 1.0.
Do you know why that there was a large amount of Austrian immigrants in Mexico?
I don't. I assume it was some sort of religious conquest, but I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping you knew this.
Nope.
Okay, never mind.
Nope. I just know.
Moving on.
I just know that they like the tuba.
I was curious.
Is that what they sound like down there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're
in the South, so yeah.
Sound like Will Shale. Well, hey, you know what? This is good. I was at the beer store, not Goshen Beverage this time. I was at Spaz Beverage in Westchester. My buddy Nick was working there, and they had the Modelo Especial, and they didn't have this, so I had to go somewhere else. But I was talking to him. He was just like, you could just drink Yingling and just not tell anybody, and it would be basically the same thing. And I was like, yeah,
it's
this
different.
Is not like Yingling.
It's
not different.
It's a lager. This is a Dunkel-style lager.
Yeah.
And Yingling's an American style lager.
It's got more toastiness to it. It's got a little more body to it. But it still maintains that lager drinkability. Like this is I love this beer actually.
It's very refreshing.
Very refreshing. Would go great with any
M&Ms?
kind of meal. Actually, no, I wouldn't pair this with M&Ms. This is like good steak or carne asada beer, if you will.
Ooh.
And I could definitely put a lime into it. Same with most of their other beers.
It could go either way.
sure.
Eat it with steak or put a lime in it. Like, it's so versatile.
Put a lime in it.
Those are the two.
This is like, who's a really versatile actor?
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman can do anything. Have we been playing anything new this week?
I actually finished a game.
Did you really?
Here's the sound.
I did. So this week, yesterday I decided that I wanted to play this game. It's been one that I've been kind of thinking about playing for a while. The Order 1886.
Oh yeah. How was it?
Ooh.
Short.
Yes, I hear.
Yeah, it was about like 6 or 7 hours, I think. I would have been mad if I had paid $60 for it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was the thing whenever it came out.
That
People
was
were mad
and that was the
they
big
paid
problem.
$60
Like,
for it.
visually, it looks really good. It has a fine story. It's a little easy to guess what's about to happen, but the gunplay is okay. It's a cover shooter with a bunch of little quick time event type thingies involved with it, and probably like in a similar style to Uncharted. I enjoyed it, but like I don't ever have to play it again. There's no replayability. There's no different choices you have to make. You basically are on rails, and you have to just play through it.
But it's good for being on rails, and it's kind of got like a monster vibe going on, right? There's like werewolves and vampires and shit.
Yep, and it kind of scratches the historical itch. The Marquis de Lafayette is in it because time doesn't matter.
Lafayette.
But it was a fun game. I would definitely, if you see it in the bargain bin for like $5, go pick it up and play it over a weekend. But
what platform did you play it on?
It's only on PS4.
Only on PS4. Got it.
Isn't the Order like knights? You're all like Knights of the Round Table.
Yeah, you're part of the
like
Knights of the Round Table. Like
Galahad
and so like there's been different Sir Galahad. So basically, you take the mantle of Sir Galahad or Sir Percival, and they've been fighting werewolves for centuries, and so like people are centuries old, and they get sustained life through drinking water from the Holy Grail, kind of thing.
Nice.
Oh, interesting.
I like it. I dig that.
So like the world they built was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
just wish there was more of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I also finished a game this week. It was also a short game, and this was a co-op puzzler called Unraveled 2.
Oh right.
I played it on Xbox with my brother, and it was on sale. And it was Unraveled and Unraveled 2 on sale for $10 is what it was. And
Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. 6 hours later, we had a really good time. It's pretty evenly balanced between platformer and puzzler, which I like. And I loved the co-op portion. The puzzles were challenging, but not uber difficult. If you're a hardcore puzzle person, it's probably too easy. But it would be good for like a first puzzle game or a puzzle game to play with someone who's a little bit younger, I think would be really cool. It had a really sadly executed story component. Like, it was so bad that it took away from the rest of the game.
Oh, that's never good.
Yeah, there was this whole like background story that they tried to tell with these like ghostly background figures that kind of interacted with the world around you, which theoretically is kind of a cool idea. There was no dialogue. It's all supposed to just be kind of mimed out by these ghost people things.
Okay.
But it's just awful. It doesn't make any sense. It's super disjointed. It's mostly just like ghost old men chasing ghost children around as things are accidentally lit on fire.
Ah, that's fine. But the gameplay itself is like you are two yarn like figures, right? That are connected with yarn.
You're two yarny boys, and you're yarning around together, knitting up some fun. And you can tie yourself off to points and then like sort of be on belay, so hold on to the other person while they like swing from you and like go up to the other point, and then they
look at you using your
the
rock
climbing words. Yeah,
that's great.
I sort of smeared that one in there, not to throw up a flag or anything.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna put you on pun alert, sir.
No, it was good. It was fun. Definitely would recommend it on sale, especially if you're a puzzle platforming person. It got me. I'm like waiting for the follow up to Little Big Planet again. I loved Little Big Planet games.
Are they going to do another one of those?
Somebody needs to do something like that.
It was funny. So, the Order 1886 actually is made by Sony, and so they had one of the Little Big Sackboy.
Yeah, Sackboy.
They had like you could pick up different objects and kind of like look at them, and one of them, like in the middle of a mission, was Sackboy, and I was like, oh, there he is.
That's great.
Awesome.
It was really cool.
That's funny.
Just the theme song makes me so happy.
You know what else has a really good theme
adorable.
song, Ian? Super Smash Brothers.
Oh, God. Not good. I don't know. It's catchy. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Dan, what have you been up to?
I honestly haven't been playing a lot of new stuff. I did get much farther in Sekiro.
Oh, okay.
It's in traditional From Software format. It's like you get to a thing where you're like, okay, I think I'm progressing the story, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, by the way, here's a lot more story to do, and I was like, oh, you added more when I wasn't expecting it.
I think you've mentioned this before, but they give you the story in this one, unlike other From Software games.
Yeah, it's not like a you have to pull it out of the game. It's more of there is a story, which is that you are trying to rescue the divine heir. Well, now that's a little bit different, but they basically you know what the goals are. It's just now it's like collecting different skills, and I'm currently finding different artifacts to try and stop something from happening, which is
how many hours do you think you have in right now, Dan?
Oh, I'd have to look, but it's a lot.
More than 30?
Yes, probably more than 30 at least.
And do you feel like the basic mechanics are still holding up in a way that's satisfying? Yeah.
The basic mechanics are still the same, and I've kind of gotten the hang of it now, whereas there are different things that are frustrating me, where initially I was playing it like Dark Souls. Damn it!
Oh.
Damn it! Okay, it's fine.
I'm so excited for this pot.
My wallet. Initially it was just like that game where I was trying to dodge around a lot of stuff. Shut up. I was trying to dodge around a lot of things, but instead what you have to do is focus on breaking posture. So it's more about just being a shinobi and getting up in people's faces and just thwacking at them until their posture is broken and like deflecting attacks that they're doing. So definitely neat. But this week I did purchase a game I have not played yet for my Switch, which is Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh, it's so good. You'll love it.
It is. It's super fun, especially because it is very different from Sekiro, where like the objectives are much, much easier to get to. Like I just went to the first area and I'm like, okay, so there's like the main moon thing I got to go get. And then on the way, I was like, oh, I just got like 15 other moons. This is super easy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the great thing about Super Mario Odyssey is that the first time you play through it, there's this incredible sense of accomplishment. And when you discover secrets and stuff, you feel really good. But then you can keep coming back. There's always more to do that you're going to necessarily miss the first time. So
super adorable. I'm a big fan. Like with Mario games, it's just like I went to GameStop and I got this game because for my Switch, I like to get physical stuff.
Physical.
And whenever I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna get Super Mario Odyssey because I've never played it, Caitlin, the girl who was working there, was just like, what do you mean you haven't played Super Mario Odyssey and you have a Switch? I was like, I'm a little behind. Just give me a minute. Give me a break.
Give me a break.
That's
break
copyright. Copyright. Thank you.
You're right. But when we were singing the theme song to Little Big Planet earlier, that's good. We're good there.
No. It may or may not have been Little Big Planet.
That's right.
We don't know.
That's right. We don't know. Honestly, it's still up.
Nobody really knows.
The world may never know. That's cool. I haven't played much of Odyssey yet. I need to get back on that train.
It was one of the really great exclusive titles it released on the Switch in the past, 2 years. And speaking of exclusivity, actually, that's our first time. Can you tell I'm working on the transitions?
Woo!
I nailed it, right?
Man, that was smooth.
So platform exclusivity is our first topic. And obviously this came up big in the news recently. Earlier this year, Epic Games pulled Metro Exodus off of the Steam platform and made it an Epic exclusive. And that meant that people who pre-ordered it on Steam before then could still get it, but anybody else had to go to the Epic store to purchase that game from now on. And that's kind of a big deal. Metro has a big audience. And so it brings up the question, is platform exclusivity a problem or is it a good thing?
I think it depends. That's a question that depends on who you're thinking of as it being a good thing.
Well, if you're Gabe Newell, obviously, you're feeling a little bit salty about that.
So I was just watching a thing on the Epic Store from Funhouse, the Rooster
Epic
Teeth
story
Productions,
about it?
an Epic story about the Epic Store. But in it, and they're talking about how Steam takes 30% of each of the game,
of the funds from each game.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's a big chunk, and the reason that people are more attracted to the Epic Games,
in fact.
Almost a
this
third.
Guy maths.
He maths so hard. But the Epic Game Store is 12% is what they take. So that's much lower, and that's why it's so enticing.
It's less than
developers.
half than 30%, in fact.
Yeah. Now you're just coming off stupid. And that's why people tend to gravitate towards that a little bit more from a publishing base, just because they get more money. They'll get more money coming to them, which means that they can get more to pay for the games, pay for the people who are making the games. So hopefully that means more content or better content for that same kind of price tag.
And actually Steam, I think last year sometime made a change to this to help out different, more successful games. So if you make revenue over 10 million, they jump up, the rev share switches 75-25, and then over 50 million, it goes 80-20. So they're rewarding people for doing better on that platform as well. It's still not as much of a rev share, and it's not like immediately you get that full rev share from Steam, but they're trying to help out with that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for independent developers, it makes a big difference for them to have a platform that's taking a smaller cut because they can count on more revenue coming back to them. I think what's not so ideal about what you were just talking about, Chris, is that if you're already someone who's going to make that much money on a game on a platform like Steam, you already have enough artistic freedom where you can kind of take some risks and make some interesting games. But the smaller publishers, like or developers, the smaller guys, aren't going to see that kind of benefit back on Steam because they're not going to sell that much money in games.
True.
Sure,
True.
But what Steam has going for it is that it has the system that it's built up from 15 years before Epic even started. So like just the built-in
the install
tools.
Base. Oh,
the install base, the built-in tools that are already there for Steam. They actually have a working chat system and like just the community around it.
Right. You can share things on Steam. You can do reviews. You get those cards. You can do
right.
Like there's a bunch of stuff. There are a bunch of like individual widgets and apps built into Steam. I a little bit of counterpoint. I think that the more that we move away from Steam and move to a lot of different platforms, the better off everyone is going to be. Because
even as a consumer?
Yeah, as a consumer, because it encourages competition. And so theoretically prices should come down.
That's true. And also because maybe it'll make Steam update their platform because Steam is garbage.
Why do you say that?
Because it hasn't been updated, like really updated.
Like visually?
Like the way that it works. I mean, like just the way that your games are stored on it, the way that you have to buy games, the 9,000 clicks to get through menus just to get to the place where you can get games. Like that's been the same.
You can go onto Amazon right now and literally click once on your shaving cream and it arrives at your door in like 5 seconds.
It's just more, it's more steps, but more so the fact that it's just like it is constantly updating, and I don't know what it's updating, but it's constantly updating, and it hasn't changed in the 15 years that they've had it.
I guess so. They are going to be doing a big visual update to it later this year. I know that they showed some of that,
but yes, Ian, it does promote competition, and that's good for us as consumers. Like that should be one of the things that these places, because remember, for years, Steam was it. That was the thing that we bought games on. Now, these developers are noticing, hey, it's easier for us to have a direct way to get these games to our fan base.
So two two other points. Number one, it's either I really think that if it gets fragmented enough and if there are enough different stores, it will bring down prices. But the other thing to say is it'll also encourage bigger companies like Ubisoft, EA, not just to make sure that it's cheaper for gamers, because sometimes like Anthem's not anywhere except for on EA's platform, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with some other titles from other publishers. But the other thing that might happen is that it can encourage competing games. So we might get, instead of having a price coming down, what we might have is more artistic competition, more thought put into the actual building of the game itself, and have people get into a war over that. It's kind of like what we've seen with Battleground games. What do you call these games?
Battle Royale games.
Battle Royale. It's like competition with Battle Royale games, right? First it was Pubbage, and then Fortnite was like, I want a piece of this. And then Apex Legends was like, oh, look at the tagging system. And it just keeps getting better and better. And there's sort of this competition of ideas. All of those things, all of those games coming from different platforms. And so you can sort of see a war of ideas helping to further genres there.
For me, I'm just starting to get a problem where I have a section of my desktop on my computer devoted to just launchers of games.
Yeah.
I have Bethesda's, I have GOG's, I have Origin, I have Uplay, I have Battle.net, I have Steam, I have Epic Games Launcher, like Discord, Twitch.
Wait, Chris, those don't all just automatically start up whenever your computer turns on?
No, because I don't do that, because that's ridiculous. But like that's a lot. And
it is.
It's getting to the point where like a lot of people that I've seen on the internet just are sick of having another place where games are going to be located on their computer. And like that seems kind of ridiculous, because like you barely even physically have to move. But I mean, at the same time, you were talking about how it takes too many clicks to buy a game. It takes too many clicks for me to open up the Epic Games Store or the Epic Games Launcher.
Okay. And I think that too, hopefully that becomes, sort of a meta competition between launchers, where they're saying, okay, what is the lowest barrier to entry? What is the lowest pull on system resources? How can we make it as easy as possible to make other games launchable from our launcher so that people can commit to this, whatever the launching thing is, right? Like you can launch Ubisoft games through Steam. You just have to import them into...
With that, yeah, you also have to, when you do that on Steam, it opens up the Ubisoft launcher.
Right, but what I'm saying is you can still use exclusively that one launcher if you don't want to have the other ones auto boot. So you can have it be your home launcher. Well, those other launchers still launch, but
you could, but that's a lot for it to do, because like I know with Division 2 Ubisoft launcher, Uplay has to be open. Like the Ubisoft launcher has to be open in order for you to play that game. You can't just load it and then close that launcher, because then it would be like, nope, you're not connected to the network anymore. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like from a clicking and launching standpoint,
okay,
you can do it from Steam or other platforms.
Clicking to launch. Wasn't that a Matthew McConaughey movie? Well, what about, because we're talking a lot about the PC stuff right now. What about like consoles? Because I know Microsoft is trying to do the thing where they're just on everything. Xbox Live is going to be on the Switch, which is kind of interesting.
Honestly, I think Xbox is making a really smart move here to try to get into other markets, not just the Xbox market, but to get into, like, Sea of Thieves is playable on PC. Rocket League, I can play with my Xbox friends on my PC with my Xbox profile. And what you see with especially games like Rocket League, and Fortnite is another good example of this, is that when you have a crazy large install base, or like when the game is available on a variety of launchers, you get a bigger install base, and then you can use that install base to monetize your game. So Rocket League is great about that. I've paid maybe $10 for Rocket League ever, and I can play it on basically everything, and it's super fun.
Yeah, but how does that help? I mean, it seems like Microsoft is heading to this is not on topic. It seems like Microsoft is becoming less of a in this realm, less hardware focused and more software focused. And I guess that's probably also why they picked up a bunch of different studios too.
No, that's definitely what it is. They're not really focused and I think their CEO may have said this a few times, but they're not really focused on the gaming market anymore. What they're focused on is the entertainment market. So they're trying to make like the Microsoft Store and Xbox Live and all of that stuff. They're trying to make it so that everything you have can be connected to this thing, so you can use your content on whatever device, which means that you will buy more content from them, which makes it more viable for them to actually have all of these different avenues for you to get onto it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a good move by Microsoft to get more into ubiquity than necessarily drilling down and making hardware.
Yeah, which is why I don't think I haven't really seen any huge Xbox exclusive games.
Yeah,
recently.
mean, this is a concern in terms of the quality of games, though. Like, honestly, a lot of the Xbox exclusives and even big Xbox franchises, I think somewhat because of their exclusivity, have suffered in quality. Gears, Halo, I don't know. It's not enough to compete with PlayStation, who's just had some crazy great exclusives.
Well, then that's what Sony is doing right, is they're snagging up these big IPs and they're having people create these giant things that are, and you'll notice a lot of them are story-based content. Like, it's like epic story, like God of War.
Naughty Dog games.
Yeah, all the Naughty Dog stuff. The one with the lady with the arrows.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
God, that name is so bad.
The one with the boy who's got like tick powers,
God of War.
And he can shoot stuff out of his hands.
Infamous? No.
Spider-Man?
Yeah, that's the one.
Spider-Man, yeah. That's it. That was interesting because that was very good. It was a very good game. But it's just all of these things that they're doing, they are console exclusive. They're great. And Sony's putting a lot of money into them, and people are buying them, $60 price points. They're not worried about doing a whole lot of DLC content on top of it, but it's still enough for it to get like Game of the Year's award, games of the Year awards all the time, or at least being contenders for it. So if there is like an award for best console exclusivity, Sony's got it. I mean, they're doing a really good job with it.
I would say Nintendo's maybe giving them a run for their money.
I think Sony, recently, yes.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Odyssey and you look at Smash Brothers and you look at the new Zelda game, there's just even Octopath, which admittedly is coming to PC pretty soon, but still,
right.
There's been some incredible titles on the Switch that are Switch exclusives.
True, but it's still only year 2 of...
Yeah, we'll see if they
Switch
can keep it up. Good call.
Right.
But for whatever reason, with Nintendo exclusives, it just feels different. Like, there's never been a thought, like it's never even passed my mind that there's going to be a Mario on PC or on PS4. You know what I mean? Like, it's always going to be on just Nintendo, whereas like it feels like the option is kind of more open with like Sony's exclusives for whatever reason. I don't know why.
I think it's mainly because of the type of content, because the games that are exclusive to Nintendo are usually Mario and Legend of Zelda and the Metroid games. Like those are their IPs, whereas with PlayStation, they can come up with a individual IP that's really cool, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh yeah, this is a Sony. Like, they haven't released a billion Crash Bandicoot games for the PS4. They did the Insane Trilogy.
Alex would argue that they should.
Yes, he would.
I think they should. I mean, and they are re-releasing all that stuff because I think it's just they don't need to.
Oh, and isn't there a new Crash Team Racing game coming out?
It's just the re-release of Crash Team Racing.
Crash Team Racing.
Crash Team.
Yes.
Crash Team Racing.
Sean Connery presents
Trebek.
Crash Team Racing.
Do you know what Sean Connery's favorite sport is?
Tennis.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Okay, so just a question to sort of wrap up the section. Is exclusivity a positive or negative force for gaming, Dan?
I would say yes, because exclusivity makes the developers and the publishers work harder to make a good product, because you can't just buy in on the fact that, oh, it's a Mario game, people are going to play it and then like it. It's
You're
more of
taking
a
risk, kind of.
Yeah. It's like you can take risks because like this is going to be something that is new and different. Like with Mario Odyssey, whenever they were just like, oh, there's a hat that you throw around that you put on stuff and you change into different things. It's like, that's a little weird, but people still bought it, and it's a great game. So far, I think it's a great game. I just need to keep playing it.
Chris.
Can I have a question for you on that, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think there wouldn't be as much competition if there wasn't exclusivity? Wouldn't be everyone just competing against everyone else instead of...
No, because whenever you say... Because there wouldn't be anyone competing for an IP that is better. Like, basically, it's kind of...
Everyone would be competing.
I mean, because the publishers would still be like, if you could play Mario on all of the systems, then Nintendo wouldn't be as apt to make new consoles or new systems or any of that kind of stuff.
I think the opposite would happen. That's really interesting. Yeah. Imagine if you could play Mario on any system, right? Then you're not buying a system because you're trying to buy into an IP like Mario. You're buying a system because you think it's the best system objectively, which means theoretically that hardware specs would go up. It's just that to me, the competition in artistic output and in price point is more important than the hardware output.
But the whole, in my opinion, what I think, thinking like a publisher and someone trying to make money, if I'm going to put out a new console, that's why there's new IPs. Imagine releasing a console and then saying, oh, hey, it's going to come with a new Mario game, but also you could play it on your Xbox One or your PS4. Then guess what happens to your console sales? They just go down, down, down.
Chris.
Yeah, I don't think exclusivity is great for the consumer, just because it makes you have to spend more money to be able to play everything you want to be able to play. Like if you want to play God of War, but you also want to play Super Mario, there's no way you can do that on one console.
So you have to buy a console to play a game. Yeah.
Right, because you have to buy so it's the opposite of kind of what Dan is saying. Like, yes, it might help competition, but it's that competition isn't helpful all the time to the consumer. And I think that makes it so. Also, sometimes that doesn't help the publishers because then they don't sell as much. I know there's a lot of people that aren't going to be buying Metro Exodus because it's not on Steam, which sounds a little ridiculous, but at the same time, like...
That sounded a little ridiculous to me.
But that's
how they feel.
That's part of PC gaming culture. If it's not the way it's always been done, then I don't want it, damn it.
It's like a bunch of old men just
it is.
owning PCs. That's basically what it is.
Bunch of cranky old men.
Oh my gosh.
What about you, Ian? What's your
I feel like there needs to be a healthy balance of games that work incredibly cross-platform and games that are exclusive to publishers, and I'm kind of fine with that. I think on the one hand, like I was saying, it can lead to a quality and artistic competition if you have AAA titles, well-produced, coming out on exclusive platforms, like you've seen with Spider-Man and Horizon Zero Dawn and all the really great PlayStation exclusives. But I also think that the tendency of the market to move towards you can do this game anywhere, when you look at examples like Fortnite and Rocket League, is really powerful for publishers to make a tight experience that is usable everywhere and you can monetize in non-traditional ways. So I'm for it all. I think generally I'm good with the market breaking up a little bit right now and not being so Steam centric on PC.
So we've got a me as a yes, Chris as a no, and Ian as a comfortable gray area in between.
That's right. Speaking of in-betweens, it's time for halftime. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to the second half of the GameBrew podcast, episode 55. We're drinking Modelo Negra. Is everyone enjoying it still?
Yes.
I just like
I'm
this
enjoying
beer.
it.
I enjoyed it all the way home. And by home, I mean into my stomach.
Beer's true home.
Beer's true home is in the stomach.
In the stomach of Chris, to be specific. I mean, it's a drinking beer. I mean, it's made to be like drunk.
Yeah.
Most beer is actually.
But like, you know how some beers are like, ooh, it's got
they're meant
fancy...
to be tasted. Fucking sours. Yeah. Get out of here, sours.
Get out of here, sours. Bullshit.
Yeah, you're right. It is a very drinkable beer.
Yes.
It's got really good flavor. It's not too much. It's not too little. It's, just right.
It's the Goldilocks of beers.
It is
Those-
Goldilocks of beers.
And the 3 beers.
Goldie.
Because that's how many you
too
can have.
bitter. This one's too sour.
This one's just right.
and then Chris comes back and she's terrified.
And then
Who
he
drank my beer?
And then he just mauls that little girl. Also, she should not
True
be
story.
drinking beer.
How'd she get into my house? She doesn't have the key. She wasn't invited.
It's rude.
Can you imagine?
Really,
She's-
I was in my right.
Can you imagine if
She's-
you came home and like a little girl had broken into your house?
And drank all my beer.
That would be
And is
terrifying.
just asleep in your bed. And first off, it's like, you are not old enough to drink. You have a problem.
Also,
young
you're
lady.
not old enough to be breaking into houses. Like this is
Also,
not a
that's
good
where the
path.
ring came from.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
What?
The movie The Ring.
The ring.
Girls breaking into houses?
Well,
Yeah, uninvited.
yeah, that.
Oh. Yeah,
Drinking the beer.
I thought it was about VHS tapes.
It's a metaphor.
What's a
for beer.
metaphor?
The VHS tape is a beer. Don't worry. Don't think about it too
My brain hurts.
much.
So, speaking of making our brains hurt, some video games out there. I don't know. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't. I don't know how to transition. The second half of today's show is about messages and about video games that have them. So sometimes those messages are more explicit, like talking about Bennett Foddy's Getting Over It, and sometimes they're baked more into the narrative of the game. If you think about a game like Far Cry 3, had a very clear message, but one that if you weren't necessarily looking out for it, you may have completely glossed over. So should games have an explicit message, or should they simply be there for entertainment?
I don't know if like should be is the term I would use, because just like any form of art, which I believe that games in their truest form is a form of art, you have the ability to put in a message as an artist or a creator, and why not use that platform in which you're doing it to relay a message? The same way that like painters will say, oh yeah, this is about, the peace in the Middle East, and this one's about the water shortage, and it's a bunch of plastic bottles sitting all over the place, and
Right. Well, I think
fancy.
yeah, that's true. I think that it's definitely you can. I don't want to say that you have to. Even in high art, putting the high in quotes, even in high art, I'm thinking about the Stravinsky octet, which Stravinsky talked about as a piece of musique concrète, that is music that is just music for music's sake. It wasn't based off of any romantic ideal or feeling or place or time or activity, nothing of that. It's just music for music's sake.
Okay.
It's okay to have a game for game's sake. It's okay to have a game that is literally just like, this is a game. It doesn't need to
Because
say
it's fun.
anything, and it's there because it's fun. Like Super Smash Brothers is, if you will, game concrete. It's just a game that's fun. There's no message there.
I would argue that it's means that it's okay to fight your friends sometimes.
Ooh, interesting. You think?
As long as you use cartoon bats, that's really all it comes down to. Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, there's no like deeper meaning behind Tetris, aside from more
More
you're
money,
really
no
good at
problems.
packing cars.
Well, and like honestly, the original Tetris seemed like a very, I don't know why, it seemed like a very Russian thing to me.
Because it had a Russian song.
And it also had a Russian background. And this was at a time during the Cold War when Russians were routinely being, thought of as the enemy. And I feel like that in itself could maybe be a form of a message that, is a little bit underneath the surface, but still there. Normalizing.
You might be digging a little too deep there.
I don't know. Normalizing some kinds of Russian culture. I don't think I'm necessarily digging that deep, but I haven't looked into the history of it. But that,
Can I give you some GameBrew facts about Tetris?
Please. Give me some GameBrew
So-
facts.
I would love some GameBrew facts.
So Tetris was developed by a guy. His name is something Russian. It was developed by a guy who was working at the Academy of Science in the USSR in Moscow named Alexei
There you go.
Payetnov. Yeah, it was. It combined the Greek, like Tetris is the name of his favorite Greek sport. Tetra means four, and tennis. So it was like fourness is basically what it is.
Okay.
But yeah,
Because in lines of four.
right, exactly. So it's basically it is a game. Like, he made a game and then he named it after one of his favorite things, because he basically just had an idea and thought this would be a cool game.
So
there is no deeper meaning.
Right, that's what you're saying. And it's still
Yeah.
a great game, which speaks
Yes.
to the fact that games don't have to have a message. Dan, do you sometimes prefer to play games with a message? Do you go seeking them out, or do you avoid them?
I do not seek out games that have a message.
Why?
That is a good way of asking it, because that's not necessarily what I'm looking for all the time. Sometimes if I want something that has a message, I'll read a book or watch a movie.
Yeah, why not a game then? Oh, this is fertile territory. I like this.
But
You just called games art, but then you were like, but I don't want to be influenced by what a game thinks.
No. I didn't say I don't want to be influenced. It's just not something. I don't seek out games to be influential or to preach to me, if one might say.
Do you seek them out to escape?
I seek them out to escape or to have fun.
My point is that I think that's a prejudiced approach to games. I'm not saying Dan's a racist. I'm just saying that
no one could see me do it, but I'm making a face that's like, oh.
Yeah, I'm just saying that you have an assumption about games that is a different assumption that you have about other forms of art. Other forms of art you're willing to look at and say, okay, I'm willing to accept this message, whether it be part of the narrative or the very reason that the thing exists at all. But for games, you're like, I don't want any of that narrative. I just want to have a good time.
I don't know if I'm not saying I don't want it. I'm just saying I don't go out of my way to do that. But also it's like, I don't go out of my way to read a lot of books that are the same way either. Like, I have not read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, because that seems like a long book and I don't know if it would keep my interest.
There's a book called Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. You should read that. Great book with a message.
I won't. But I will read Shogun for the third time. Even though it's 1,500 pages, it's a good story and I like reading it.
Chris?
I can kind of understand what Dan is saying. Like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but it sounds like you will play, like, the reason that you play a game isn't because it has a message, but you will you will play a game even if it does have a message. So, like,
that's true,
because
yes.
It's a good game,
right?
And that's kind of how I feel. Like, there are games that have a message that I happen to play, not because of that, but they happen to have that. Does that make sense?
Can you give an example, Chris?
And I guess it was a book first, but the Metro series,
right,
kind of has a political.
Talk us through it, because I never played the Metro series or read the books.
So basically, there's some aliens that are there they're there to help you out, but everyone is scared of them because just the situations they come in, and like they seem evil. Like, the whole game you think they're evil, but at the end you find out they're trying to help you out, and like there's like a child alien that like you kind of connect with at one point and kind of start helping out. And I can't remember if that was the first or the second one, but just making it like, just because people are different or something is different doesn't make them automatically bad.
That's a heavy ass message, especially for a first person shooter.
Right. And like, I didn't play Metro because I wanted to have that experience. I played it because it's a good game and because I had heard good things about it.
That's interesting. Dan, I want to go to you for a second and just contrast that about with a game that we talked about in the opening of this segment, Bennett Foddy's Getting Over It, which I know that you've played. Now, that game has a very explicit message in comparison to Chris's message, which is sort of buried in the narrative and the structure of the game. Do you feel like one or the other is more effective? And maybe you can outline Bennett Foddy's Getting Over It a little bit for those of us who haven't played.
I think it depends on how that message is conveyed. So in Bennett Foddy's Getting Over It, the whole game is about climbing. You're a guy in a pot with a sledgehammer who is trying to climb a large mountain. If you haven't seen this, there are literally 1 billion playthroughs on the internet. Just go look up someone playing Bennett Foddy's Getting Over It. And the whole time that you're playing, I don't know if it's Bennett Foddy himself, but there is somebody who is telling you like inspirational things about, like, every time you fall, he's like, it's okay to fall, because what we know is that we can just pick ourselves back up and start going again. And it's nice until you do it about 500 times, and then you're just like, Bennett Foddy, I'm going to murder you if you say that one more time, because you're not helping me get over it. You're just telling me to get over it.
Right. So the game has a very clear message. And it sounds like that message, if the point was that message, that didn't really resonate with you, partially because it was so explicit, partially because it was so in your face.
Well, and that can be, that's hard because it's not that stopped me from playing it. It's more the fact that I just wasn't good at it. And that made me want, and he even says it in the thing. He says, hey, you can go take a break, go outside. You don't have to keep playing the game. You can, go, sit outside, enjoy the air, and, just kind of be out there for a little bit and then come back and maybe you'll do better.
I've wondered if that's actually the point of that game.
I think the point of the game is for it to be hard as balls. And then,
well, no, but what I'm saying, I'm wondering if the point of that game is to be so hard that you quit, and that it's more about helping you to understand that letting something frustrating go is okay than it is about perseverance. But maybe not.
I think the creators of Sekiro might have that feeling too.
But so I guess my original question was, is that kind of in your face approach to getting a message across better than the sort of like medicine tucked inside the hot dog method that Chris was talking about with Metro, excuse me?
It really depends on how it's done, because just like books or just like art in general, if it's too in your face in whatever it's trying to tell you, then to the point of where it's sacrificing gameplay, then that's not good.
Right.
Like, I'm trying to think of an example.
I mean, Spec Ops, maybe.
Well, but Spec Ops 2, The Line is a pretty decent game, though. Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't say...
but it's not as... I would say they did have to sacrifice some of the mechanics to make the game work. One of the other things that interests me about this discussion is whether or not whether or not developers are disincentivized from having messages in their games because it necessarily limits their audience to the people who either agree with them or are willing to be convinced by them about a certain message.
Ubisoft, I think, does a lot to say that their games are not political.
Oh my god!
Like, including with Assassin's Creed, where at the beginning they say that the game was made with the people that worked on the game have multiple different religions and multiple different races. So they try to make it so it's not trying to be political, but by the very nature of what their games are about, they often are.
Interesting.
Like The Division 2 being in DC, it's hard to not make it political.
See,
okay. Or like Far Cry 5, which was very political, but they tried to make it not, and they said it's not a political game.
See, I actually think that Far Cry 5 and The Division 2 are really great examples of games that suffer because they pulled so far back from having some kind of message. Like they have to, The Division 2, because it's about a post-apocalyptic DC, you'd think would have some kind of political message or a message about like what the world should be or how we should interact with it, but it doesn't at all.
The message with the way we should interact with the world in a post-apocalyptic DC is that you need to kill everyone.
Well, but they're
going to drop you really nice things.
What I'm saying is that that's not a message. That's just like, yeah, you just shoot. It's just a game about like ray tracing. We could replace everything in The Division 2 with like, instead of guns, it could be like, water hoses, and you're spraying flowers that run around to make them grow. And it wouldn't make it a lick of difference in terms of anything except for visuals. Whereas you could change all of the sprites and all of the environments in Celeste, and you would still have a game about overcoming hardship.
Okay. So, and that's an interesting thing because Celeste, the game, is about that. It's about overcoming hardships and like personal. It's
about perseverance.
Yeah, perseverance kind of stuff. But it's also a fun puzzle platformer.
Yeah.
It's different, but it's the same.
Well, so what I'm saying is like the Ubisoft games are expertly scrubbed of any kind of political inference, and I think they suffer from that. Like, even
I didn't feel that way with Far Cry 5.
Well, that's where I was going to go next. Even Far Cry 5, which could have been a statement about religious intolerance or religious people, like ran away from that, like turned around the other direction and sprinted away from that in a way that ended up making it feel cheap.
Well, that would be very limiting to your audience too, from a publishing standpoint.
It would, but it would be compelling as a statement and therefore as a piece of art.
Okay.
And I think that's the friction that people run into with this. Like, if you want to make a game that makes a statement, you're either limiting yourself to a statement that is so ubiquitous that you still have a platform to sell to, or you're scrubbing it of statement entirely and just making it a game. And I think that's a disservice to gaming as art in the way we like to think about it. I wish people would take more stances and be willing to take risks.
That's the difference between, I mean, a lot of the ones that we're saying have stances. I mean, I kind of disagree with some of the Ubisoft ones. I take them, some of the things they do is
okay.
political,
Well, so convince me on Far Cry 5.
I'm not here to. I'm saying something else.
Okay.
Because it's interesting that you feel that way, because the games that you say are making statements are from smaller publishers, whereas the ones that aren't are from bigger ones. And that's because that's the difference between games as art versus games as a business.
I think that's not necessarily true. I think Far Cry 3 actually had a really clear message that, like, killing and violence is something that is bad and that can destroy you as a human being. But it was from Ubisoft earlier on, and it sold very well.
4 did something too.
Yeah, but 4 was kind of a rehash of 3, so it's kind of like I don't really think about 4. I think the other
true.
one to mention
he is right, Chris. I know you're making that face, but he is right. It they just basically said, "Hey, another white person saving the world."
Yeah. I think a few more examples of games that did make a statement from larger publishers. To your point, Fallout 2 and The Sims were some early games from big publishers. Maxis at the time was a big publisher, probably no longer. But Fallout 2 and The Sims both allowed you to marry same sex. So you could be a man marrying a man or a man marrying a woman. And that at the time was probably a huge statement back in the early aughts or pre-aughts. I think Fallout 2 came out in like 98 or something. But that's a message. There's something
I wouldn't have
there.
called Interplay a big publisher.
Oh, was it not Bethesda then?
No, Bethesda didn't get it till 3.
Oh, well, sorry. My point with Maxis stands.
I have a question.
Yeah.
There are some games like The Last of Us. Have you guys played The Last of Us at all?
No, I need to.
No.
Okay.
Will's told me about the giraffes, though.
Yeah.
Will has talked about the giraffes. So there's I don't know if I want to talk about this now because I'm going to ruin things.
Well, just say spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. If you don't want to know what happens at the end of The Last of Us, then stop listening now and then maybe come back in like 2 minutes or something like that. Okay. So there's a big moral choice that the main character makes in The Last of Us, because basically Ellie, who's the little girl that you're guiding somewhere, her blood is what is needed to, like, it can save everyone and prevent and stop the outbreak of this zombieism that's happening. They would have to kill her in order to get all of the stuff. So the main character, Joel, instead of allowing that to happen, instead he rescues Ellie from these people who are trying to save all of humanity, and then basically he kills everybody, and they just leave. So would you say like that kind of moral choice, is that like a message? Is that them saying that the need for family and love is more important than the human race? Or
yeah, I think that's them. I'm trying to remember which philosopher this is based on. God,
it's something like losing humanity for the sake of...
Well, right. It's exactly that. Yeah, what they're saying is the sanctity of an individual human life is morally worth more than destroying that life simply to help others. And I think there's certainly an argument to be made there. And I honestly am like, wow, like I need to go play this game now to see how it shakes out, because that's a hell of a choice to have to choose between killing a child in cold blood but she hasn't done anything wrong, and saving, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. I don't know how many people are alive in this universe at this point.
Not many,
but it is
The Last of Us,
right?
Yeah, it's true. It's not like The Most of Us or The Sum of
We're
Us.
mostly here.
I have another moral game question.
Yes.
This one you have played more than likely.
Yeah.
The BioShock series.
Mm-hmm.
So the BioShock series is about, I mean, generally between all of them, like BioShock 1 and 2 are about furthering ourselves and like continuing this evolution and like becoming the best us we can be, in quotes, versus retaining kind of that kind of humanity and like the going back to the old ways. And then of course BioShock 3 is about like nationalism and
that would be BioShock Infinite.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
BioShock
they jumped a couple
Infinite.
Between 2 and Infinite.
Yeah, that's true. They just didn't. They were like, we're going to skip all of the other numbers. So would you say that did that game suffer because it had a message that was built into it, or it was still very well received game at the time and still currently probably?
Yeah, no, I think that game was all the more powerful because of its message. And I think that's another good example of a game from a pretty big, well-known developer and publisher that succeeded with a message. Although, I'm trying to think about the end. Actually, you know what's interesting is they sort of punt on the message thing because you're allowed to make a choice one way or the other in the end. So the message is there, but you get to choose what the answer is. It's interesting. Chris, you were shaking your head.
No, I was shaking my head because you were saying that it was from a big publisher.
Oh.
Which it is.
Okay.
It was just funny that you...
Oh. But no, I think your point is well taken. A lot of big publishers do punt on the message thing, and I think that's a mistake. I think
it's the choice between being a business versus doing something as a passion project.
Man, this episode should be titled "Business versus Humanity."
Well, I just feel like you can do both. I think Overwatch is another good example of
the moral dilemma of using a sniper while you're attacking. Because you should never do that.
No, what I'm talking about is I think Overwatch and Blizzard in the development of Overwatch has had a very strong investment in the idea of diversity, and in general that has not proved to work against them, and in fact in many cases has worked for them. And you can see like Overwatch has a huge following and it's big in esports, and they have been very overt about their support, not just of people of different races and ethnicities, but also of LGBTQ people. And I think that's really special, and I think it's a good message, and I'm glad they're doing it. But it's a big game with a big message.
But
I mean, do you feel like the message is secondary though? Like they just happen to be that?
No. I feel like it's overt.
I think if those characters were just run of the mill, it wouldn't matter. Like the game wouldn't change. It would still be the same game. I appreciate that it's there, and I'm glad that it's there. But it doesn't affect the game itself.
It doesn't affect the gameplay, but it does affect your individual connection with that character for a lot of people. I mean, you could see how passionately people feel on both sides of that debate with the whole Soldier 76 when he was revealed to be gay. There were people who quit Overwatch.
They were? That seems so silly.
That's ridiculous.
But there are also, I'm sure, an equal number of people who are like, okay, like it's a start. Representation is a start. And this is something I want to support.
Sure. You know, a game that I agree with the message the most is probably Wolfenstein. I think we can all get behind that.
Shooting Nazis?
We can. Yeah, shoot the Nazis.
Yep, Nazis are bad.
Nazis are bad, okay.
Yeah, I think
that's a political message that I think that everyone... everyone can feel good about that.
There's a very small group of people who would disagree, but we don't care about those people. No offense.
If you listen to our podcast...
Actually, no. Lots of offense. Please stop listening to our podcast.
It's not for you.
Do you guys think that all games, whether they mean to or not, have a message of some kind?
Like Doom saying that demons are bad? Yeah, I agree.
Murder all the demons. I mean, that's what it's about, right?
Well, but you could come to Doom as someone who maybe has a background in Catholicism and think that Doom has a message, maybe? I don't know. I'm asking.
But yes, it does include some, like, air quotes here, satanic symbols, but you're destroying them. Like you're literally a demon to them.
Yeah, but that's another big thing. Like who's the real demon in Doom? Is it them or is it you?
100%.
Well, I mean,
they write stories about how scary he is.
Guys, do you remember there's a little game series called Halo? Do you remember that? Where in the first one you're like, oh yeah, we're fighting all these guys. And then in Halo 2, they were like, hey, guess what? You also get to play as this other person who you may be on this different side of. So yeah, no, that sort of thing is interesting. Now, again, with first person shooters, it's hard to say, okay, the message of this game is anything other than shoot all the bad guys. But with like Halo 2 and Halo 3, it was like the continuation of the universe. It was that just because you're different doesn't mean that you have different goals. Like you could still be saving the universe even though you're different people. And would you say that if you didn't have that message, would you say that Halo 2 was a worse game?
I think so.
I think so too. And I think that is just one of the things, and this is why I think games with a message or having a message in your game really, if you do it well, only makes it better. If you build the game on that message without having content to back it up, then it's
just superficial.
Yeah, it's just preachy, and that's not what you want.
Any closing thoughts in messaging in games?
I have some clothing thoughts. Ian, you could wear more button-down shirts.
Okay.
Will, no, Will's not here, but Chris, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you like my Discord shirt?
I do like your Discord shirt.
Well, that's going to be it for episode 55 of the GameBrew podcast.
55.
If you have feelings or want to send us a message about messages in gaming, you can hit us up on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. You can check in with us at our email at thegamebrew@gmail.com. There's all kinds of ways to get in touch with us, and we love it when you do. Hit us up on Discord. Our Discord.
Yeah, join our Discord chats.
Discord is lit right now, so come hang out.
Yeah.
But that's
oh my God, how old are you? Are you 15? Lit. What's wrong?
Litaf, actually.
Litaf.
Litaf.
Yeah, it's bit.ly/discobrew.
Yes.
Can we change it to bit.ly/litaf?
I'm sure that's already taken.
No.
All right, that's it. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Also, happy Cinco de Mayo.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. Oh, also, it's time for the Dan and Chris show. The Dan and Chris show.
Doot, doot.
All right,
So-
hey everybody. This is welcome to Dan and Chris show. I'm Dan.
I'm Chris.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about a little stuff. Chris, I have a question for you.
I've got an answer, I think.
Hopefully. So Ian is. It's you and me and Ian on this podcast. Do you think?
Sure is, Dan.
Do you think we could invite Ian to be a guest on the Dan and Chris show for the second half, and he'd be into it?
Only if he didn't know he was on the Dan and Chris show.
Well, then we're just going to keep the show going. Just don't let him know that he's part of it.
Oh,
in this one.
And listeners out there, don't you let him know either.
Yeah, remember to. It's
a secret. It's a special secret, Dan and Chris secret.
Yes, you won't. Ian will never know, even if he's editing this podcast this week.
Which he is.
He will never know. So back to our regular format. So, Chris, chairs.
I love to sit in them.
Me too.
Man, they make except when I sit on them too long. Then it's too long and I get up.
That's a good point. But here's the real question is what chair is best?
The one that I'm sitting in now is pretty good. I think the one that Ian's sitting in is also pretty good. Ian, how do you feel about chairs?
I'm for him.
He's for him, ladies and gentlemen.
He's for him. There we go. That is a Dan and Chris show fact. Ian is for chairs.
Can endorse chairs. I love that the four legs generally make them very stable.
Is the one that you're sitting in have four legs though?
It does not. This is a wheel and platform based chair. Also known as a rolly chair.
Mm-hmm. So here's the real question: does the chair have like 8 legs, or does it have one leg
chair
on a platform? So is it a one-legged chair or an 8-legged chair?
Dan, just give me a second to check this undercarriage here. I'll report back in a moment.
He's checking out the undercarriage, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, just in case you wanted a visual representation, Ian is currently on all fours looking at the bottom of his chair. His ass is nice, I will say.
Turns out this chair, Dan, has 5 legs. Each leg has a roller on the bottom.
So it's like a spider that you've taken 3 of the legs off of.
That's correct, Chris. Yes.
Okay.
It's like a mean 8-year-old. You've ripped the legs off
the
of
daddy
that
long
spider.
legs.
Yes. That
terrible.
poor spider.
Oh my god.
We didn't say it was a nice 8-year-old. We said it was a mean 8-year-old.
Did one of
A
you
Joffrey
actually
type
do
of
that?
8-year-old.
What?
Did
Of
either
course
you
not.
actually-
That's rude to spiders. They're just trying to help us. They eat all the bad bugs. So this is the Dan and Chris show with our weekly sponsor, the spiders.
Thank you, spiders, for making it less buggy.
Yes, if you like less bugs and more strings, then just ask a spider. If you have questions about spiders, go to www.spiders.com and they'll be able to tell you about all of the different spiders. So remember to go there and type in our special promo code spiders.com /DNCS and that's DNCS, and then you will get 10% off of your next order of spiders.
Back to chairs, though. Back to chairs. Ian, I did have a question about your chair. It says respawn on it. Does that make you spawn faster after you die in video games?
No, it actually makes me just come back if I die in real life.
Oh, that's really nice. That's a nice feature.
That's an interesting life hack. A literal life hack.
What's great about it
mine's a beauty rest. Mm-hmm. It makes me sleep better, but only when I sit in it.
And also, you look beautiful, can I say? I don't know what you're doing with your hair, but so luscious.
It has lots of volume.
Shampoo. I use shampoo today.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's a secret right there.
That's a beauty tip.
That is interesting.
Chris's beauty tips. Oh my god.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I think that's it for the Dan and Chris show this week. Let's Chris, any final thoughts on chairs?
Don't fart in them too much.
Don't fart in them too much. Special guest Ian, any final thoughts on chairs there?
No, it's just been a pleasure being on the show, Dan. Every time I'm here, you all make me feel like a great person.
I was hoping you would say natural woman, but that's okay. I'll take great person. And
that's just the non-sexist version of it.
Yeah. And you know what? It's chairs, seats for your cheeks. That's really what it is. The ones on your butt, not on your face. All right, and thanks, and that was the Dan and Chris show. So now we're going to say goodbye. Bye. Bye. Ian, you have to say bye in a high-pitched voice. That's